have the setback from Route 28 was the only issue, but we have an overhanging deck there that's been there since we bought the house in '96, which is probably encroaching upon the setback already, and we're going to go, I don't know, you've got the map there or whatever, it's like a few feet past that. So I don't know what I don't remember what the exact measure is. I can look it up. But, so, yeah. You want the reason why we're doing this? Should I repeat that from last? Okay. So at this point, what we do is we go around the back of the house to enter through the kitchen. We have no proper entranceway, and so we're building hopefully a mudroom, which will be closer to the driveway. In winter, less walking, less shoveling. You know, we're getting up in age. So we'd have a foyer, and then we would take the area that we're going to use as an entranceway. That's the dining room now. That would be the addition. So the dining room would be moved to the new part that we built.
There was no one here.
There's no one here to speak publicly on this application? Okay.
So it's an 11-foot. Yeah, 11-foot barrier.
So yeah, very various.
Yeah.
I don't see any issues with it. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the request, the application as requested, and we also find this to be a type 2 action under the secret review requiring no additional environmental review.
Sure.
I second that. Yeah, 3 seconds.
Well, that means there's unanimous
Roll call.
Need a grand variance, so
Yep.
the roll call.
Okay. Gary Board Member Guglielmetti.
Yes.
Board Member Lodi.
Yes.
Board Member Reese.
Yes.
Board Member Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for that time.
I'll send
You're all set.
Okay. Thanks. Good night. Thank you.
Come back and see me.
Okay. I'll take that daily agreement thing back.
Yeah.
We can have this one. You don't need to read by order at the end there. You can do that.
I just want to give you a little bit of, microphone FaceTime.
Yeah. Stop saying
Probably
that.
Howard Stern of Shandaken, if it's on Facebook, then it's probably. Oh, are you reading this one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Shandaken Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing pursuant to number 274 and/or 276 of the state law and is prescribed in the district schedule of area and bulk regulations of the Town of Shandaken Town Code for the purpose of hearing the following applications. This public hearing is regarded an area variance application submitted by Bruce and Elizabeth Bell for a parcel located at 667 Route 214, Chichester, New York, 12416, indicated as section number 14.5, block number 2, lot number 5. The public hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, March 16, 2016, in the Town Hall Building, 7209 Route 28, Shandaken, New York, at 7:30 p.m. Anyone interested in this case is invited to attend this hearing. Communications in writing in relation thereto may be mailed to the board or presented at the hearing. By order of the Town of Shandaken, so thank you, the fabulous Ann Riverdale.
Okay.
Yeah.
I presented last week. Do you want me to go through the whole thing? I do have my neighbors here today.
Just give us a brief overview.
A brief overview. I have a piece of property I've had for 20 years. I'm moving up here full time. It was not good for a family to live in. It was the old Wesleyan Chichester Church. It was built it's 125 years old. On the side was a Sunday school that was put in at low ceilings, and in the last 10 years it's been disrepair. In fact, we didn't even hardly come up at all. We couldn't actually stay in there. We've come in, we're about done. In another month, we've fixed it up. In doing so, we find ourselves a little limited in space because we've kept the integrity of the church by not putting in bathrooms, kitchens, and so forth. It's not a living space per se. And so the other side is a living space, and we kept the original foundation of that. And we find out we don't have a mudroom, we don't have a back entryway, we don't have a place for tools, and our bedrooms are too tiny for adults, which I have adults living there with me, my kids. So we would like to extend out the back end of that building, the annex building, 10 feet. And what we are 25 feet from Shauna's property. And so 10 feet brings us, now there's the 15-foot line. The problem of trying to go out anywhere else for us is a little precarious because we are surrounded by a graveyard. And we're surrounded by unmarked graves. And that has been documented to us by the office downstairs. Like saying right by the front footprint of that place are 3 babies that were buried there in '63 and whatever else. I mean, I don't know. There might be a way to find out, if there's graves and we try to build somewhere else. But we built out the front, we destroyed the integrity of the original church because that would be there's no encumbrances on our setbacks there. So our request is to build out 10 feet from the back end of the annex, the side building, and that's what we're trying to get.
Those graves from 1963 or 1863?
Yeah, we went through that. Did I say? I didn't do that again, did I? 1963.
Excuse me, what zone are they in? What zones do you? No, yeah, 1.5. I'm just curious to how much of a setback is that you're looking for.
Oh, yeah, it's from 1.5, and it's 25-foot setback, that's why it is for 10-foot variance.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
It's a small property. It was donated by the factory to build a church in that area. Way back when, 1890. 1890. Get those 100 years right will give us better communication.
A little bit of these.
Yes. Okay. So, the Bells are requesting this variance. Really, the neighbors, Shauna, and myself, and Dave. We have a few issues. One is that the Bells are advertising that they have plans to have a business, workshops and retreats in the church. And we know that they've had a yoga business and have talked about this for years, and it's been pretty openly advertised. So we're really concerned about what the real use of the building is and why they're building 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. So we believe that the proposed addition speaks to their intentions to build a business adjoining our properties without adequate utilities, including water, sewage, and parking is a major problem, as well as the use of a shared driveway. The Bells were offered an opportunity to drill their own well when they bought their property in 1992, but they declined. They currently share a well with Dave and I, who have the old parsonage to the church. Okay? And we're concerned with these additional bathrooms and bedrooms that the water supply could be compromised. At the present, they don't have a working septic system. We wonder how they'll replace one that is large enough to serve 3 bedrooms, wastewater, with all the shallow graves on property, and little room to spare. Additionally, there are concerns about electric lines that are placed, Shauna's electric lines, which are placed in the area that the Bells plan to place a septic system. Let's see. The Bells structure has been abandoned for 20 years, essentially. The roof leaked for many years, and the church and the annex became badly infested with toxic black mold. We approached them about this and were told that they would get proper professional mold abatement, and we have not received requested information or evidence that this was done, and it's been a serious health concern. It was horrible in there. So we're also concerned about how the Bells plan to use our shared driveway with issues of increased traffic, parking, and upkeep. We've maintained the driveway for 24 years independently. So we're asking that before granting a variance for additional construction, additional bathroom, additional bedroom, really with the plan that they're going to have retreats and business of sorts, that these issues are all addressed. This is our worry. It's already become really chaotic with construction vehicles that are leaking into our properties and debris. And it's a really tight spot. And so, thank you. And Shauna has
I've been wondering why there are regulations governing the distance from property lines that construction is permitted. And I assume that if there's nothing else, at least that it addresses privacy and property value and protecting the health and well-being of the property owners and their families. As you've heard, the Bells are proposing to build a structure 15 feet from my property line and right in the side view of my house, which is probably, I think, maybe less than 100 feet from there. The present construction is already looming much higher than the previous building was, and now the addition would be even more so intrusive into my property. As Dara mentioned, the Bells have a yoga business in New York City, and they have talked about for many years and are now advertising retreats and workshops in the church. And this is pretty threatening to me and to my family. If this goes forward, the proximity, the being 15 feet from my property line will bring a lot of activity, a lot of sound, a lot of vehicles, a lot of strangers in close distance to my house and my property. A number of years ago, Bruce said to me that he had visions of his clients roaming on my land and in my orchards, and I thought, this is really very presumptuous and also not very respectful to me as a property owner. Plus, it puts me in a position of extreme liability if something happens to one of them while they're roaming on my land. And so I feel that it's time for us to be talking a little bit about limits on this. And I'm reliant on the regulations of the town of Shandaken to protect my interests and my family. Several years ago, as Dara mentioned, the property has been in extreme disrepair. During that time, I've watched the church and the annex deteriorated to the point where we thought it would probably collapse and also become coated with this black mold. It's been a real eyesore in addition, as you might imagine. So several years ago, the Bells had some construction which we believe was structural work, probably to prevent the collapse of these buildings. And a large pile of debris was left in their yard right in the sight line from my house. That was my front view. And it remained there for years. On one of the rare occasions that Bruce came up, I asked him if he would please remove it. It was, by the way, covered with a very bright, very large blue tarp for all of these years. And that wasn't such a problem in the summer when there was foliage, but in the winter, this is what we had to look at. And it was pretty awful. So I asked Bruce if he could move it, and he looked at me and said, I don't have the money to do that. Too bad. And so that was that, and we continued to have to endure that. This pattern of neglect continued until the current construction began this summer. There was no discussion at that time between the Bells and myself and Dave and Dara about what the impact of this construction would be on us. Based on their track record, why would we expect that the Bells will maintain their property responsibly? We all know that when the wet weather comes in the summer, mold starts ramping up again. If they don't have evidence to present us all with that the mold has been professionally abated according to regulations, I would expect that it will return. And now, if there's the addition 10 feet closer to my property and 15 feet from my property line, that creates even more of a danger that I've had to endure all these years. So, it's very close. There's been a pattern of neglect and indifference. As Darren mentioned, there's been garbage. I have a big bag of it that I collected last weekend that's been left by all the working people, and there's more that I saw today. It's not been a good experience for us. So I am requesting that the variance not be granted. If it became necessary for that to be granted, I would request that it be modified. I think it's reasonable to ask for a mudroom, but 10 by 15 is a pretty big mudroom. It's bigger than a lot of people's bedrooms. Pardon? 2-story. And that it be brought down to 1 story. which would be a lot less threatening in our view, that the footprint be decreased. We also suggest that we wait a few years and see what evolves and whether the pattern of neglect just perpetuates or whether there is responsible ownership. And if it must go forward, we would request that, in agreement with myself and Dave and Dara, that the Bells be required to erect fences to contain the activity of their business. So I thank you very much. I appreciate your being here for us to present this to.
Yeah, I'll address all these issues. First of all, I'm sorry for the crappy neighbor. We really had run out of money. We have 2 businesses in the city. Our rent went up $150,000 in 1 year. That's all.
Let me excuse me, Mr. Bell, can you keep your comments coming this way?
Well, to Shauna in particular, she was,
Okay.
addressing.
Keep them all coming this way.
So we've had financial troubles. In fact, we're losing our businesses. In fact, that's why we're moving up here. But you might go over and look at it and see that we've put a substantial amount of money from our retirement to move up here full time. We're not talking about fixing something for $5,000 or something like that. We're talking about building a new home. So you're invited anytime to come over and see it. You can smell it. You can do everything. We've done everything in accordance with the building codes. We've been in touch with Warren constantly. I have a professional builder here. There's no mold there. There's nothing like that. It's all out. A lot of this was a lot of, I don't know if there's any professional opinions that our neighbors got to say that this building is what it is. Like, did they bring someone in? I brought in somebody. They thought the building was going to fall down. I brought somebody in, a professional. The building was not going to fall down. Yes, there was mold. It was, I agree, that was bad. I didn't like to go into it. I've cleaned it up. I cleaned it up myself, and then I had professionals come in. We've redone all the walls. We've redone all the insulation. We spent a lot of money, a lot of effort making, trying to make that, or not trying to make it livable. I'm not going to live in a house that has mold, that I have asthma, that I can't breathe. Sorry there's been a little mess around. I don't see a lot of debris myself. Yes, we share driveways, so when I have contractors in there, and I'm not there all the time, and they're bringing in 3 trucks and so forth, there's not that much room there, but Shauna hasn't been there all winter. Dave and Dara were gone for a whole month, so there's been, a little crossover. That was the main, I suppose, areas, going on this winter. We're not advertising a business. Show me any evidence, show me any internet, show me anything in the world that we're advertising a business there. It does not exist.
We have it right here.
Wow, who is that? Well, I have it. Maybe my wife has.
Right.
Okay? We're allowed to have 7 people there. Check that out. 7 people between the size.
Wouldn't be allowed to have 7 people.
Home business, you're allowed to have 7 people depending on the size of your construction.
Advertisement for
and
business.
the size of your open space. Other than that, I suppose you're allowed to have a park.
And it's a home business, it doesn't qualify as a home business, it qualifies as a health club, which is not allowed in the R1.5.
There's no health club there.
It's a health club, it's a yoga institute.
It's not a yoga institute.
What is it then?
It's my home.
Excuse me, in regards to the business of having a health club or being a yoga studio, this is really that's really the jurisdiction of the planning board. That would go into the use of the building. We're specifically looking at the variance for the addition out the back rather than the use of the structure. Okay, so that would all, if there was a home occupation or something going on with the building used as a commercial venture, that would go through Warren to the planning board. So let's just address
So we're not putting in a health club, we're selling a health club. We're done with health clubs. We do yoga because that's who we are. I do healing work. I counsel people privately, so I'm allowed to have them in my house. My neighbor has had a retail business of imported goods. In fact, I had opened up my church for her to come in there freely and use that. In fact, then I allowed her to store stuff there for 10 years, which this year I actually asked her if she could take it out, and she said she didn't want to come in and do it, so I actually took out, the stuff that had been there stored for quite a long time. So I've, in that sense, been generous and, to my neighbors and letting them use the facility that I wasn't using. It didn't bother me.
We can only address the issues that are germane to the variance, whether you've been good neighbor, bad neighbor.
Well, I was just trying to get through
all this stuff.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to go through this. So,
Not in our domain.
so we're not building a health club. We want to build out the back. The bedrooms are a little small for adults. It's 8 by 10, 8 by 9, so that's why we wanted to go out. We already have the bedrooms in the back and the second floor. We wanted to extend them to the back.
That's Warren, the building inspector, that's Warren's domain.
Oh, we're
As
trying,
to-
right.
As to septic and bedrooms allowable, septics.
Right.
And how many bedrooms, that is.
As far as the permits are concerned.
Yeah, it's the building department.
All we're trying to do is get this little floor print to build the foundation out the back side, and then that's where they're coming in. Now, they're addressing things about building constructs. I don't know if those two fit together or not. As we're trying to get a variance to go out 10 feet out the back, they're talking about architecture and building permits and stuff, and land use and all of that.
On your application says the proposed addition is going to be 14 feet high, is that accurate?
The current roof height, I believe at that point is 19 feet. And here's
That it's a shed roof addition? I don't think I have a side view of it. Is that accurate? Yeah, I don't.
that's a proposed
Okay.
drawing.
Okay, so it is 2 stories.
So we just
It's
took
this area
the,
here, Nick.
we just took the current roof, it stops right there, and just moved it out to there. From there to there.
Okay.
And then where's the young lady's property from here?
Shauna's property is back here. Dave and Dora's property is over here, Highlands.
Okay. So we would have to have an amended application if this is not accurate here.
Last week I went through, I thought
Yeah. I don't know the application that I have, unless you got new applications, but I'm not seeing.
no, we just had a verbal, we were expanding the footprint by 5
I can't
feet.
give you that type of. Well, the property line.
That's a very tenacious driveway.
Yeah.
Would that allow mitigation for a fire equipment to get around in case there's a fire there? So, if that's gonna create a little alley there, you gotta be able to access, get some equipment in there, that's gonna box that in. I mean, that driveway is really horrendous.
The driveway is probably 20 feet now.
It's very narrow and it's extremely steep.
Oh, that's not where.
Talking about on the back of the house.
That's the
yeah,
front.
or the-
You're talking about the front of the house.
In the driveway's in the front.
Yeah.
But the addition's in the back.
The addition's in the back.
But now, the proximity to your home, this is coming near your home, correct?
This is
No.
coming towards my.
All right, so
She's behind. You want me to draw the property
Now,
out?
how do you, well, I don't see her,
Yeah, it should be a
how do
map.
you access your house? In other words, with that 15 feet, is there gonna be any access getting around your house?
The addition's on the far end.
It's on the far end?
So where the driveway goes in, it's not encroaching on the driveway side of it, it's towards the other end of the building.
True.
You said concerning access of services like fire.
Change the number to 19. Change the number to 19.
Well, it's not changing the requested variance.
But it's inaccurate. I mean, the application is inaccurate.
Well, he submitted that first and then he changed his mind.
Mostly I thought we were talking about the footprint, not the.
We are, but I mean, it should be accurate.
I think it's a possible zoning
This is
issue,
just,
but, yeah,
Well-
that's a minor point.
I mean, the roof line didn't go, there's a limit to what the roof line is, and, we just went out the back, so they raised it up 2 feet.
So it
So
looks
somebody
like,
could walk in there.
so the structure you're applying for, the roof line is actually lower than the roof line of the main structure, the church, correct?
Everything's lower than the church. The annex is lower than the church. It's like probably 3 feet lower, it intersects, right?
Now, just to clarify, there's no legal obligation for Mr. Bell to clean up the the mold on his property vis-a-vis the neighbors, right? I mean, you have all the mold you want on your property, right, legally. I mean,
Yeah, but if it's
there's
blowing
no
on
legal-
somebody else's property, that's no good. I could sit on my porch and smell it from across the yard, 100 feet away.
And one of my kids is very allergic and has been affected by it since it's been released. It's uncomfortable for him to be in the house.
We took care of the mold problem.
It's for the moment.
We might not have done it in the timely manner requested by our neighbors, but we did actually spend $15,000 repairing it, thinking we did, and then there was another leak in the roof.
Are you still smelling it?
Haven't been out there all winter.
It's brand new construction almost everywhere.
Except the church.
The church has been practically drywall, re-drywall, re-insulated. The old ceiling ripped out, the one that had all the old mildewy fiberglass, so that's not really correct.
I have a question. I understand that you're here really about adding the addition and a variance for that.
That's all.
And that it's not about the planning. But I guess my concern is that if someone is moving in a direction of now building a 3-bedroom, 3-bath home, and you have some information that there could be a business there, doesn't this kind of speak to where we're going with it? I mean, we've seen other people do this in the town of Shandaken, where they, begin to ask for variances or building permits, and then the end result is a change of use. So I just wanted to bring that up.
We've always been zoned 3 bedrooms, maybe not 2 baths, but the size of it and so forth. So that didn't change. There were just tiny little unnamed bedrooms because the place is a large enough space. We just didn't build permanent walls anymore, like made a curtain to make a bedroom. But it was, basically because of the size and so forth, it was, the zoning of it, and I've been paying taxes on a 3-bedroom house for 20 years.
But you understand that even if we grant this variance, that does not immediately justify.
I understand. I'm just trying to nip it in the bud because I've had 25 years of experience.
We have to follow the law.
I understand.
Anything that comes up at any point, that's what Warren's here for.
Right.
If there's a violation of the town code or the building code, that you refer to an officer.
Can I ask Warren a question in private?
After the public hearing.
Oh,
After the meeting.
After the meeting.
okay.
It's fine. And the other question is that apparently construction is going on now.
The one, our neighbor came to us with actually it was not a request for us to share the well. It was telling us to get off their property and drill our own well. I just went through the legal documents without ever having met them before. Here's a paper, you must drill your own well. And, we bought the house and we have the rights to, have that water and so forth. So we had to go through that. We had to hire a lawyer to, correct that and make that, clear that this was a shared well and we had deed rights to it. And we still do, and I'm still zoned 3-bedroom and so forth. We did out of that.
Have there been any capacity issues with the well because of that water?
Well, no, they've never been here. So if they get a house full of people,
And
They've never been here.
well, we've been there. We were there in and out, and then last.
Okay, now we're getting to civil law.
Yes.
All right, and one other.
That's a civil issue between
We
you
are
two
having a
guys.
new septic system, and we're paying, a certain amount of money to make sure that it doesn't actually go under the electric lines of our neighbors by, by our own common sense. And
They're on sewers, they're not, that's just lower check-in. You guys have sewers?
so that's being replaced. Actually, there was no septic system. There's a hole in the ground with some rocks, A cesspool. So, we're putting our life savings in to live here. It's not, they're worried about the mold and, there's people going to be living there. I think probably they're a little upset that they have new neighbors coming back in. And like, I would be a little concerned, that we're actually going to be living there. And the other things are personal, and I'll apologize for that. That's, this is about us trying to get 10 feet out the back of our house to build a little more space to make our.
Have you gone to take a look at this? Not pertaining to this application, but I've seen that, I've had to go up that driveway in the wintertime, because people get stuck there a lot. And it's a very steep driveway. So that's why I asked where the addition's gonna be in regards to getting around the other house.
From the back side of the church. Yeah.
It's all the way in the back other corner. At the end of Shauna's inlet driveway.
Directly across from our kitchen window.